In the headlines, Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance Gail Teixeira says no government employee have been fired, but urges political appointees to resign by next week.
We are not the ones looking for a fight. In fact, it is those who don't want to give up that are looking for a fight.
Preparations are on the way for the hosting of the inauguration ceremony of Guyana's 9th Executive President, Dr. Irfaan Ali. An unarmed man who was shot by police dies 12 days later, while his friend is left paralyzed. And in sport, AAG President advises against hosting National Schools Championship this year. With the news, I'm Kurt Campbell. We're glad you could join us. First up, leader of the People's National Congress Reform and former President David Granger has warned the People's Progressive Party of consequences from what he says is a vulgar, divisive and vindictive campaign of alienation against former ministers and public servants. In a statement Friday, Granger said the coalition will also lawfully challenge the declaration of the election's results.
Former ministers whose normal residences are located in rural and hinterland regions were swiftly ordered to vacate their government quarters unreasonably within 36 hours. Public servants were locked out of their offices without explanation. Contracted officials were threatened with arbitrary and summary termination of their service. The PNC recalls the violence unleashed by PPP hooligans against innocent school children traveling on a school bus at Bath Settlement in the Mahaika-Berbice region on Friday the 6th of March in the wake of the elections. An atmosphere of fear and loathing has enveloped the nation. This should not be expected after elections in our country. The People's National Congress warns the People's Progressive Party to desist from pursuing this dangerous pattern of aggression against officials, members of society, and persons perceived to belong to other political parties. The PPP will bear responsibility for the consequences of its conduct. The PNC and APNU coalition have stated repeatedly from the start of the electoral process that they expected a lawful declaration of the Elections Commission. We have never altered that position. The PNC cannot endorse a flawed report and will continue its campaign to ensure that the votes of all Guyanese are accurately recorded, tallied, and reported. The PNC, in the national interest and with a view to preserving peace and maintaining order, has acted responsibly throughout this prolonged political crisis. We implore all Guyanese to remain calm and peaceful. The PNC will challenge the declared results lawfully. We urge our members, supporters, and friends who have been patient throughout our campaign and the post-elections process to continue to conduct themselves in a lawful and peaceful manner.
Meanwhile, in response to the PNCR leader, Minister of Parliamentary Affairs Gail Teixeira on Friday clarified that persons who worked under the David Granger administration have not been relieved of their jobs by the new People's Progressive Party government. Teixeira called on Mr. Granger to encourage his political appointees to do the honor and resign. More in this report. Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance Gail Teixeira said the Irfaan Ali administration expects that political appointees under the previous administration will do the honorable and dignified thing and hand over state assets in their possession and resign. She said the government is not interested in taking away the jobs of hard-working public servants, but political appointees have been persuaded to resign, and if they fail to do so by next week, they will receive letters of termination.
No political appointee has been received a letter. In some cases, they're being persuaded to resign, which would be the easiest thing and most honorable thing to do.
The minister said Mr. Frederick McWilfred and Dr. Mark Curtin, both political appointees under the David Granger government, have already resigned and handed over state properties, but she said resistance continues to come from several others. She singled out Carol Joseph, who defended the coalition during the tabulation of election results and who participated in the recount exercise. Attorney at law Gita Chandan Edmond, who was a candidate on the coalition's elections list, and Ronald Barker. They all serve as advisors to Joseph Harmon, who was the Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency.
Unfortunately, there are a number of political appointees who have been advised to hand over the vehicles. They have not handed over the vehicles as yet. They've been advised to vacate the premises that are paid for by the taxpayers. They have not done so. And so we are not the ones looking for a fight. In fact, it is those who don't want to give up that are looking for a fight. So Mr. Granger, take note. Tell your appointees that came under your government to behave in an honourable way and do as you did, hand over.
Teixeira and the PPP government took particular objection to a statement by former President David Granger earlier on Friday, in which Granger warned the PPP against pursuing public servants and former ministers of his government. The Minister of Parliamentary Affairs said she found Mr. Granger's language to be quite disturbing, in which she called on the PPP to desist from its pattern of aggression and referenced persons who served in his administration being dismissed and treated badly.
We are not going to be preached to by those whose record is now up for examination and will be examined, I'm sure, by the auditors in great depth. But we have to also make sure that we as the new government are protecting our people.
Teixeira said while ministers automatically lose their jobs with a change in government and should vacate government premises, political appointees are also expected to do the dignified and democratic thing and follow suit. Teixeira said just as Mr. Granger has given up state assets willingly and walked, he should encourage his political appointees to do the same. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom. We tell you now that His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfaan Ali Friday morning met with Maria Clara Crisio, Brazilian ambassador to Guyana, Patricio Beca, Chilean ambassador to Guyana, and Felipe Alejandro Gardella, Argentine ambassador to Guyana, at the office of the President. During the meeting, the ambassadors extended congratulations to President Ali and noted that they look forward to working with the new government to advance mutual interests. They also shared a communique from the Forum of the Progress and Integration of South America, PORSER, which stated that the governments of Brazil, Colombia, Chile, Ecuador, Paraguay, and Peru member countries of PORSER and Bolivia as observers appreciate the work carried out by the Electoral Observation Mission of the Caribbean Community and the support of the Organization of American States. When the newsroom returns, preparations are on the way for the hosting of the inauguration ceremony of Guyana's 9th Executive President, Dr. Irfaan Ali, and government ministers who reside in far-flung areas given 1 month to vacate government properties. Welcome back. You're watching the newsroom. Preparations are on the way for the hosting of the inauguration ceremony of Guyana's 9th Executive President, Dr. Irfaan Ali, on Saturday at the National Cultural Center. With COVID-19 changing the way things are done, the President has employed innovative procedures to ensure the involvement of the Guyanese public. Let's take a look. With the restrictions imposed by COVID-19 and the push to include the Guyanese public in the momentous event, President Irfaan Ali will be complementing his inauguration observance with a number of outreaches to several regions to interact with citizens. The President will travel across regions to meet with citizens following his inauguration at the National Cultural Center on Saturday. The inauguration event for President Ali will be held in accordance with strict adherence to COVID-19 guidelines. This means that a limited number of persons will make up the list of invitees. Those persons will have to observe appropriate social distancing, wear their mask at all times, have their temperatures checked, and follow sanitization processes in place. A screen will be placed outside the National Cultural Center for viewing by members of the public. The event is slated to start promptly at 10 a.m. with the arrival of Prime Minister retired Brigadier Mark Phillips, followed by the arrival of President Dr. Irfaan Ali. There will be a review of the Guard of Honor and the 21-gun salute before the President and his entourage are escorted to their seats inside the Cultural Center, where the formal part of the ceremony will commence. That will see the recital of the National Pledge, singing of national and patriotic songs, along with cultural dances in the lead-up to the address by President Irfaan Ali. Dr. Ali was declared the 9th Executive President of Guyana on Sunday, August 2, 2020 by the Guyana Elections Commission after a 5-month delay following the March 2, 2020 elections. He was immediately sworn in as President before the Chancellor of the Judiciary, where he took the oath of office. Saturday's event is ceremonial to mark his ascension to office. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom. Former ministers of the David Granger administration who reside in far-flung regions have been given 1 month to vacate the government property they currently occupy, while others are being asked to leave as soon as possible. Others were written earlier this week by the Parliament office asking them to vacate the properties within 36 hours, and they include former ministers Simona Brooms, Karen Cummins, Valerie Patterson-Yearwood, and Hemraj Rajkumar. Some of those properties were being rented for hundreds of thousands of dollars by the Parliament office for the ministers. Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance Gail Teixeira, during a virtual press briefing Friday, said as per norm, ministers vacate residences.
Ministers are no longer ministers of the APNU-AFC government. We know that they have vacated their offices and that they are expected to hand over state property and state assets, cars, offices, residence, and other properties. Mr. Granger particularly points out with regard to the Amerindian, what he calls the Amerindian ministers. I wish to inform Mr. Granger in particular in speaking today that two of the Amerindian ministers who do not live in Georgetown have been given 1 month to vacate the government quarters that they occupy. The third minister lives in Georgetown. There has been no request by any former minister to have any discussion about whether they need more time. However, it is normal practice if you're in a government quarters, you leave as urgently as possible when you no longer hold the position of minister. And that goes for political appointees as well. But I do wish to comment and make a comment about the fact of the time period. In May 2015, the elections were May the 11th, and I think Mr. Granger was sworn in on May the 16th. By the morning of the 16th, the ministers had moved out from their offices. Their vehicles started being handing in by the Monday, and that is how we did it. And I hear the indignation in Mr. Granger's voice. However, he didn't seem to have that same indignation as President when the former Minister of Housing and Water, Mr. Irfaan Ali, was unceremoniously locked out of his office after the swearing in of Mr. Granger. And he could not get in to even get his personal belongings that were left in his office. Isn't it ironic that that is the person now who is the President of our nation?
Still ahead on the newsroom, an unarmed man was shot by police, dies 12 days later while his friend is left paralyzed. Welcome back, you're watching the newsroom. A 39-year-old Festival City South Ramville Georgetown man died at the Georgetown Public Hospital on Thursday, 12 days after he was shot 4 times by ranks of the Guyana police force. Cecil Sampat was club hopping with a co-worker, 27-year-old Winston Fraser, who is now paralyzed, along with Joshua Letlow and Sion Greenidge on July 25 when police opened fire on them. Isanella Patwa reports.
Relatives told the newsroom that the 4 friends, 39-year-old Cecil Sampat, 27-year-old Winston Fraser, Joshua Letlow, and Sion Greenidge, were in motorcar PYY 4432, which police mistook for a car used in a recent robbery at Eccles, East Bank, Demerara. But according to a police report, the ranks had dispersed a crowded bar at AGGRESSORS, during which there was a fight between 2 men and one of the men was armed with a handgun. The armed man subsequently entered PYY 4432, and as such, the ranks began trailing the car. However, the police vehicle had some mechanical issues, and the ranks contacted other patrols in the city and notified them of the situation. Sampat and his friends were intercepted on Darwin Street when police began shooting at them. No weapons were recovered from the friends or in the car. The shooting occurred at 1:33 hours on July 25th. Sampat's sister, Erica Tolaram, told the newsroom during a telephone interview Friday that initial reports from the doctors at the hospital revealed that her brother was shot 3 times. However, a post-mortem conducted on Friday showed that he was actually shot 4 times. Tolaram said there are also major discrepancies with the report of the police on what really transpired.
4 times he was shot, but yet the car that they were in only got 4 bullets, and the driver was also shot. But what the other occupants of the car told us is that it took them out and they still shot shot my brother when they already took him out of the car. So he got one bullet that went through his lower back that shattered his large intestine and rectum. He got one bullet that went through his right rib cage. That is what that damaged the lungs. And he got two in his legs. That is when they shot him outside. When they took him out to the car, they shot him twice into the right leg, and that was broken. The security camera showed 1:33. He was shot, but he never reached the emergency until 3:30, and then the police took him.
Letters requesting a thorough investigation were sent to the Commissioner of Police, the head of the Impact Base Unit stationed at the Breakdown Police Station, and the head of the Police Complaints Authority.
We had to take these steps because, as I said, the police was not doing, they're not telling us anything. It is now almost 2 weeks, and the police is yet to issue a formal statement. Up to now, I called the Commissioner acting Hoppy yesterday. He assured that they're doing investigation, but to date, nothing.
Sampat was described as a very easy and fun-loving person. He was employed at John Fernand's Limited for 21 years. Meanwhile, Winston Fraser's wife, Nikita, during an interview with the Newsroom, highlighted that 17 police ranks were placed under close arrest after the shooting. The wife said she spoke with outgoing Regional Commander Philip Azor, who confirmed that the men were shot wrongfully. Fraser, who also worked at John Fernand's, is now paralyzed. Doctors said it is impossible for him to ever walk again. He was shot twice to the stomach and the back.
Well, he's currently not able to feel from the waist down. He had a surgery done for some bullet fragments that went settled around the heart, and he still has the bullet lodged by the spine. Well, I did talk to Mr. Azor, which would have been the Commissioner for A Division, and he had told me that he personally had arrested the 17 officers since the stories were misled. Everybody had their own story, and he do apologize that they were shot wrongfully, and it's under investigation at this time.
Both families of Sampat and Fraser are calling for justice following the gruesome and wrongful shooting of the men. Reporting for the Newsroom, I am Isanella Patwo.
A 33-year-old gold miner of Post Office Street Grove, East Bank, Demerara, was arrested on Thursday after he allegedly threatened to kill a dredge owner, Daryl Gaza Obermuller. Police ranks from the Bartica police station also found an unlicensed black 9mm Petro Beretta pistol and 3 live rounds in the possession of the miner at his camp in Quartzstone, Backdam, Cuyuni River. The Newsroom understands that the miner visited Obermuller's mining camp in search of him and left when he did not find him. The miner subsequently returned to his camp when he was arrested by the police who were waiting for him. A team of doctors from Georgetown were on Friday deployed to Region 9, one of the country's COVID-19 hotspots. Members of the Civil Defense Commission are also setting up isolation tents to assist with the increased number of positive cases. Isanella Patwa reports.
The LETEM COVID-19 Rapid Response Team was placed under quarantine after it was revealed that one of the doctors, Narash Torres, tested positive for the disease. Regional Executive Officer Carl Parker and his wife were also placed under quarantine. Parker told the Newsroom he also came into contact with Dr. Torres. Those in quarantine were only tested on Friday and are awaiting their results. Since the LETEM team is under quarantine, it has added to the strain of the already stretched resources in the region, and as such, a team of doctors from Georgetown was sent to the area on Friday. The Civil Defense Commission is also installing isolation tents in LETEM, Anai, and Patarnau in the region.
A team of doctors are already here. They are being briefed, and I'm certain by tomorrow they will be launched into the operations. We have already set up with the help of Civil Defense Commission. We have tents, 3 tents in the old malaria compound here in Letem. We have 3 tents in Anai compound, and we set up another 3 in Patarno in the south central area.
Parker explained that the region does not have enough staff to conduct contact tracing and mass testing at this time, but highlighted that they are expecting more doctors from the city.
We have a rapid response team in every sub-district. We have 5 sub-districts. So there are 5 rapid response teams. We had to bring in people from those areas to take up the slack here in Letem.
The Regional COVID-19 Emergency Committee is also asking retired health workers to return to the job during this time. Region 9 on August 6, 2020 recorded 102 COVID-19 cases. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isnella Patwa.
27-year-old resident of Victory Valley, Linden, was arrested on Wednesday after he visited the highway-based patrol to report that his car was hijacked. But police later found that the same car was involved in an armed robbery the day before. The armed robbery was committed on Andrew Thomas and another person on August 4th at Craig East Bank, Demerara. Police headquarters reported that the car, a black Fielder wagon, was found abandoned at Friendship East Bank, Demerara, and is presently lodged at the Grove Police Station. An unlicensed .380 Harrisburg pistol and 3 live matching rounds were found inside the car. Police said the suspect's story did not add up, and after being questioned, he subsequently admitted to the robbery on Thomas, along with a series of other robberies. Investigations are ongoing. We now bring you an update on Guyana's COVID-19 situation.
Now for the situational update in Guyana. As of August the 6th, the number of persons tested is 5,165, with 4,627 persons being negative. The total number of tests done is 6,524. The number of positive cases have climbed to 538, with 22 COVID-related deaths. There are 327 active cases in institutional isolation, 38 persons in institutional quarantine, and 3 persons in the COVID ICU. To date, 189 persons have recovered. Over the period 3rd to the 5th of August, 64 new cases were reported. These cases came from Region 7 with 48%, Region 9 33%, Region 4 8%, and Region 8 6%. Fellow Guyanese, you will have noticed the steep climb in the number of cases over the past few days. Our hinterland regions are feeling the brunt of the viral presence, especially Region 9 and 7. All villages and communities are vulnerable and at extremely high risk, and in light of this, heightened efforts to engage all to help control the spread of the disease must be a priority. I want to applaud our surveillance team involved in tracking contacts and identifying additional sources, as well as the lab staff working to provide us with timely results. And so I wish to remind you all, especially our younger persons experiencing symptoms, to seek medical attention and get tested at the earliest. Do not attempt to self-treat. Get expert help. I wish to compliment all those who are making the effort to comply with all our control measures of social distancing, hygiene etiquettes, and wearing of the mask in public.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather and bridge report along with sport. Welcome back to the newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We start things off by telling you that though the usual period for the national schools cycling, swimming and track and field champions is November, the Athletics Association of Guyana President Aubrey Hudson feels it's not advisable to go ahead with this year's championship, given athletes' safety might be at risk. Akin Green spoke to the official and filed this report.
Nationals, as it's commonly called, is a Marquis School Athletic Championship, organized in partnership with the Ministry of Education and the Guyana Teachers Union. The AAG normally conducts the groundwork to ensure that the various rules are applied correctly. However, given the situation with COVID-19, Hudson indicated while it is not impossible to host the event, the logistical and safety requirements that will be needed to pull off the event makes it inadvisable.
We will always be in favor of having competition, but again, our athletes' health are very, very important. So I would not necessarily advise it unless we have clear indications that every athlete that is coming into that village is free of COVID, and we have a way of separating them from the patrons during the championships, and so we can keep them safe. I think that, as I said, the difficulty is keeping them safe from contracting it, or if someone comes with it, how do we detect and prevent them from infecting other people?
Last year, close to 1,600 students and teachers took part in the event. The norm is that students and teachers would use schools as their form of housing for the one-week event.
The issue for me does not lie necessarily with the competition of it, of what goes on the track or in the field of sport, but the whole housing of athletes and that kind of stuff in the way they are normally housed for nationals, I think may pose a threat unless prior screening is done and that kind of thing. But the way the athletes are housed, they're not in their own rooms; they're all clustered together on benches or on beds in the schools. I think that may pose a problem. Again, that's just my view of things. What happens in the field of play? I mean, we can sanitize the pits, we can sanitize the buttons, we can reduce the amount of lanes that go there, which could, follow the World Athletics guidelines, because they would have put out guidelines of how we should operate at this time.
In an invited comment, Brushel Blackman, head of the Public Relations Department at the Ministry of Education, stated they have not made any decision regarding the annual event, which is in its 60th year. For the Newsroom, Akim Green.
Teams in this year's Hero Caribbean Premier League have had to make some last-minute changes to their lineups ahead of the August 18 bowl-off in Trinidad. Guyana Amazon Warriors have been forced to make one change, while three-time champions Trinidad Knight Riders is the only franchise without a change. Here is more.
After the Afghanistan leg spinner Case Ahmed did not have the required transit visa to pass through the UK and board one of the CPL's charter flights, his place in the Guyana Amazon Warriors was taken by the young Trinidad and Tobago spinner Kisundat Magram. Magram has played a solitary first-class match for Trinidad and Tobago Red Force against Leeward Islands Hurricanes in January this year. Like Case, Afghan pair Ramunullah Garbaz and Noor Ahmed also had to withdraw for similar reasons. Meanwhile, the West Indies all-rounder Fabian Allen has also been ruled out of the tournament after missing his flight from Jamaica to Barbados. Players, staff and officials were required to arrive in Trinidad 2 weeks before the start of the tournament, with a number of charter planes organized to fly them to the island. Allen, who was retained by the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots in last month's draft, was due to reach Barbados in an internal flight on Monday, August 3, before boarding the charter to Trinidad, but was late to the airport and missed his flight.
The International Cricket Council today confirmed that the Men's T20 World Cup 2020 that was postponed due to the COVID-19 will now be held in Australia in 2022. India will host the 2021 edition as planned. The Women's Cricket World Cup 2021 in New Zealand has been postponed until February-March 2022 because of the impact of the pandemic has had on cricket globally. More in this report.
The decisions were taken by the IBC, that's the commercial subsidiary of the ICC, following an extensive contingency planning exercise which has taken into account the health, cricket and commercial impact of COVID-19 around the world. The ICC acting chairman Imran Khawaja said, and I quote, "Over the last few months, as we have considered how we return to staging global events, our number one priority has been to protect the health and safety of everyone involved in ICC events. The decisions the board have taken today are in the best interests of the sport, our partners and importantly, our fans. I'd like to thank our partners at the BCCI, Cricket Australia and Cricket New Zealand, as well as the Australian and New Zealand governments for their continued support and commitment to a safe return to ICC events." End quote. The ICC Chief Executive Manu Sane said, and I quote, "We now have absolute clarity on the future of ICC events, enabling all of our members to focus on the rescheduling of lost international and domestic cricket. We have taken a decision to move the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup to give players from every competing nation the best opportunity to be ready for the world's biggest stage, and there is still a global qualifier to complete to decide the final three teams." End quote. The format of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2021 will remain as it was for 2020, and all teams that qualified for that event will now participate in India in 2021. A new qualification process will be run for the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2022.
England are clinging on in its first test against Pakistan after a Ben Stokes-led fight back on a fluctuating third day at Emirates Old Trafford. The home side took 4 wickets for 27 runs, including 2 Stokes, in the fading light to leave Pakistan 137 for 8, leading by 244. Even now, that represents a formidable target for England to chase on a surface spitting and biting for the spin bowlers. History is not on their side either. Only once before have more runs been chased in the 4th innings to win a test on this ground. Earlier, England, who were 92 for 4 overnight, salvaged something from their first innings by reaching 219 in response to Pakistan's 326. The second edition of FIBA's Restart Guidelines is now advisable for national basketball federations and leagues. The purpose of these guidelines is to offer direction and advice for the restart of basketball activities and competitions. More in this report.
As basketball activities and competitions are gradually returning around the world, and with the situation relating to COVID-19 evolving since the first publication of the Return to Basketball Restart Guidelines for National Federations, FIBA has compiled a further set of key recommendations to its Restart Guidelines. The FIBA COVID-19 Medical Advisory Group has been regularly reviewing the latest scientific knowledge as well as all the information, including know-how, best practices and challenges in the context of the return to basketball that have been provided by those national federations and leagues which have resumed their basketball activities and competitions. The World Health Organization, that's the WHO, has revised the first version of the risk assessment tool for sports event organizers to provide an overview of the process for determining the risk of COVID-19 spread. More information on the guidelines can be viewed on our website, newsroom.gy. Commenting on the development, the Guyana Basketball Association Secretary General Patrick Haynes said, and I quote, "The GABF considers the well-being, including the mental and physical health of all involved in our sport, to be of paramount importance. We are thankful to the experts from WHO PAHO, the FIBA Medical Commission and FIBA COVID-19 Medical Advisory Group involved in this important work. We welcome this second edition of the Restart Guidelines, which will further assist us when presenting our plan to the Government of Guyana through the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport and the Ministry of Health to ensure our restart plans adhere to the current plans of Guyana, therefore a safe return of basketball and 3-on-3 basketball competitions." End quote.
And with that, we've come to the end of this evening's newscast. On behalf of the news and technical teams, I'm Kurt Campbell saying good evening. Do not forget to join us right here tomorrow morning on E1 for live coverage of the inauguration ceremony of President Dr. Irfaan Ali.